Is something bothering you, Richard?
No, Mom, I'm fine.
Looks to me like he's got girl problems.
What makes you think you're so smart, Chuck?
Picture this. You're watching your favorite show, and a character you've known for years just vanishes. No goodbye hug, no moving truck, not even a single line explaining where they went. One episode, they're at the dinner table. The next, they've been erased from the family photo album. And I'm not talking about some background extra either. I'm talking about main characters, series regulars.
Well, I think she got the message.
How did I do?
You were great. Your timing was perfect. I don't know how Mom and Aunt Rachel ever got through life without us.
People who were supposedly essential to the story. Well, buckle up, because this happened way more often than you think. And it even has a name. Chuck Cunningham Syndrome, named after the original Vanishing Act himself from Happy Days. Before anyone else disappears into thin air, go ahead and smash that subscribe button so we don't vanish from your feed. And trust me, you'll want to stick around for number 1, because that character literally broke the fourth wall to joke about their own disappearance, then vanished anyway. We're counting down 10 characters from the most iconic shows of the 80s and 90s who ghosted their series without a trace. Let's dive in before someone else goes missing. Number 10, Judy Winslow, Family Matters. Family Matters premiered in 1989 as a wholesome spin-off of Perfect Strangers, focused on the Winslow family navigating life in Chicago. Carl and Harriet had 3 kids, Eddie, Laura, and little Judy, played by Jamie Foxworth. She was the youngest, the sweet one, Daddy's little princess. For 4 seasons, Judy was right there in the living room, dealing with typical kid problems and occasionally getting caught up in whatever chaos her siblings created. Then, in 1992, during Season 4's 9th episode, titled Mama's Wedding, Judy appeared as a flower girl. And after that, gone. Completely gone. Now, here's where it gets bizarre. The show didn't send Judy to summer camp or have her move in with relatives. There was no throwaway line about boarding school or staying with Grandma. The Winslows just suddenly had 2 children instead of 3, and nobody on the show ever mentioned it. Carl and Harriet literally forgot they had a 3rd kid. Christmas episodes came and went with no Judy presence under the tree.
Judy, go start taking the things out of the boxes.
One old shirt. $1.50?
Family photos on the wall mysteriously showed only Eddie and Laura. It was like she had been surgically removed from the show's memory. So what actually happened? Steve Urkel happened. Jaleel White's nerdy neighbor was supposed to appear in 1 episode, 1. But audiences went absolutely crazy for him. And suddenly, Family Matters wasn't a family sitcom anymore. It became the Steve Urkel Show, complete with transformation chambers, cloning machines, and increasingly absurd science fiction plots. The budget had to shift to accommodate all these special effects and Urkel-centric storylines, which meant someone had to go. Judy was the youngest and least integrated into the main plots, so the producers just released Jamie Foxworth from her contract and pretended the character never existed. Years later, co-creator William Bickley admitted it came down to budget, and even Jaleel White acknowledged how wrong it was. But at the time, nobody batted an eye. This was the 90s. Networks could erase characters overnight and assume viewers wouldn't notice or care. Number 9, Chuck Cunningham, Happy Days. Let's talk about the character so infamous that the entire phenomenon is named after him. Happy Days premiered in 1974, set in 1950s Milwaukee, following the all-American Cunningham family. Richie was the main kid, Joni was his little sister, and Chuck was the older brother, the basketball star heading off to college. Gavin O'Herlihy played him in Season 1, bouncing a basketball and delivering the occasional grunt. Then Randolph Roberts took over in Season 2 with slightly more personality, but still not much to do. By Season 3 in 1975, Chuck Cunningham walked upstairs one day and genuinely never came back down. The Cunninghams went from 3 kids to 2, and Howard and Marion never once asked where their eldest son went. No mention of college, no wedding invitation, no phone calls home. Richie became an only brother to Joni, and the show just rolled on like nothing happened. Now, there's a popular myth that Chuck's final scene was literally walking upstairs. But that's not exactly accurate. He just stopped appearing, which somehow makes it weirder. The show set in the wholesome 1950s, an era supposedly obsessed with family values, featured parents who completely forgot they had a son.
Howard, you're not giving him a fair trial.
Hey, there's an idea. How about a trial?
Behind the scenes, the problem was simple. Gavin O'Herlihy left after season 1, later saying he didn't want to spend his career grunting and bouncing a basketball once every few weeks. Fair enough. Randolph Roberts stepped in, but the character never connected with audiences. Meanwhile, a guy in a leather jacket was stealing every scene he was in. Henry Winkler's Fonzie, originally meant to be a minor supporting character, exploded into a cultural phenomenon. The show's focus shifted entirely to the Richie and Fonzie friendship, and there simply wasn't room for a bland, older brother who brought nothing to the dynamic. What makes Chuck's disappearance legendary is that it established the template. 50 years later, every time a character vanishes without explanation, people reference Chuck Cunningham syndrome. He's the godfather of TV amnesia, the original ghost who haunts every disappeared character that came after. Happy Days ran until 1984, but Chuck's absence became more famous than anything the character actually did. Number 8. Tiffany Holloway, 227. 227 ran on NBC from 1985 to 1990, centered around a tight-knit apartment building in Washington, D.C. Marla Gibbs, fresh off her success on The Jeffersons, led the ensemble as Mary Jenkins. One of the regular families was Rose Holloway, a loving single mom, and her daughter Tiffany, played by Kia Goodwin. Tiffany was best friends with Mary's daughter Brenda, and yes, that's future Oscar winner Regina King as Brenda. Tiffany was the quiet, studious one, a perfect counterbalance to Brenda's spirited energy. The 2 girls were practically inseparable through the first 2 seasons.
Mama, can I go get an ice cream cone?
Oh, sure, honey. Here's a quarter.
Rose, are you crazy? You gonna give that child a quarter for some ice cream?
You right.
Then season 3 arrived, and Tiffany appeared in exactly 1 episode called The Sing Off, before vanishing completely. Rose suddenly had no daughter. The single mom storyline just became a single woman storyline, I guess. Nobody in the apartment building ever asked where Tiffany went. No summer camp excuse, no visiting relatives, nothing. The show acted like Rose had always been childless, and everyone just went along with it. Imagine your mom just stopped mentioning you existed, and none of her friends thought that was weird. The real story wasn't dramatic or creative. Kia Goodwin's mother simply didn't like living in California and wanted to move back to New York. NBC agreed to release the young actress from her contract, and the family relocated to the East Coast. That's it. But instead of writing in a single line about Tiffany moving to stay with family in New York, which would have taken 5 seconds, the show chose collective amnesia. No explanation, no goodbye, just pretend the child was never there. The rest of the core cast, Marla Gibbs, Jack Harry, Helen Martin, stayed through the final season in 1990, but Tiffany Holloway slipped out of the sitcom spotlight like a ghost. This perfectly captures how 80s television operated. Networks genuinely believed that if they didn't acknowledge a character's absence, viewers wouldn't notice, and maybe some didn't. But for those of us who remembered Tiffany, it was bizarre watching Rose interact with the building's other families while her own daughter had been memory holed. Number 7. Lori Foreman, That 70s Show. That 70s Show premiered in 1998, set in 1976 Wisconsin, following Eric Foreman and his basement-dwelling friends. Eric had an older sister, Lori, the promiscuous wild child who was basically his opposite in every way. Where Eric was nerdy and anxious, Lori was confident and reckless. She created awkward sexual tension with Kelso, disappointed her parents constantly, and served as the family's cautionary tale. Lisa Robin Kelly played her from 1998 through 2003, bringing sharp comedy to what could have been a one-note character.
Oh, sometimes I hate you. Well, that is just too bad because I love you.
Then things got complicated. During season 4, Lori completely disappeared with zero explanation. She returned in season 5 with Lisa Robin Kelly reprising the role, but something was clearly off. By season 6, the show had recast the part with Christina Moore, and fans immediately noticed. Then Lori vanished again, this time permanently. Red and Kitty Foreman went from having 2 kids to just Eric, with no mention of where their daughter went. No wedding, no moving away, nothing. The family just pretended Lori never existed. Behind the scenes, Lisa Robin Kelly was fighting personal battles that eventually became public. She struggled with substance abuse throughout her time on the show, leading to her initial departure for health reasons. The show attempted to bring her back in season 5, hoping things had improved, but the situation hadn't stabilized. They recast with Christina Moore for season 6, but by then, the character had become too associated with real-world pain to continue. Eventually, they just wrote Lori out entirely rather than keep addressing it. The story gets darker. After leaving the show, Kelly's struggles continued and became tabloid fodder. She faced multiple arrests and very publicly battled addiction. In 2013, she passed away at a rehabilitation facility at just 43 years old. That 70s show chose silence over explanation, which in retrospect seems like the most respectful option available. This wasn't a budget cut or creative difference. This was a human being fighting demons that a sitcom format couldn't accommodate. Sometimes, the real story behind a character's disappearance is far sadder than anything that happened on screen. Number 6. Mandy Hampton, The West Wing. When Aaron Sorkin's The West Wing premiered in 1999, Mandy Hampton was right there in the opening credits. Played by Moira Kelly, she was a sharp political consultant, part of President Bartlett's senior staff, delivering Sorkin's trademark rapid-fire dialogue. She had great chemistry with the ensemble, particularly in her sparring matches with Josh Lyman and her complicated history with Leo McGarry. For one full season, Mandy was a main character navigating the high-stakes world of White House politics. Then, season 2 premiered, and Mandy was just gone. No farewell episode, no dramatic exit, nothing. In one scene, Josh mentions her absence with a throwaway line. "Mandy? She's not here anymore." That's it. 4 words to explain why a senior staff member at the White House vanished.
Look how young and cute I am. What about Gil McGregor? And who would think that someone who had accomplished as much as I have would be this young?
Her office literally disappeared from the set between seasons, and the show moved on without missing a beat. For a series obsessed with political maneuvering and consequences, the complete absence of explanation was jarring. Aaron Sorkin's vision for the show had shifted. The network wanted romantic subplots and pushed for a Mandy-Josh relationship, but Sorkin wanted pure political drama. The creative differences led to Moira Kelly's contract not being renewed between seasons. There wasn't time built in for a proper send-off, so Sorkin just removed her from the board and tightened the ensemble around CJ, Toby, Josh, and Leo. The show's ratings actually improved in season 2, suggesting the streamlined cast worked better for the stories Sorkin wanted to tell. But the abruptness created a lasting legacy. West Wing fans coined the term Mandyville to describe the TV limbo where poorly written-out characters go. It became shorthand across all television discussions. When a character disappears without proper closure, they've been sent to Mandyville. 25 years later, Mandy Hampton is barely remembered for what she did on the show, but her exit created a whole new piece of television vocabulary. That's one way to be immortalized. Number 5. Amy Amanda Allen, The A-Team. The A-Team exploded onto NBC in 1983 with a simple premise. 4 Vietnam vets, falsely accused of a crime, help people while evading military police. It had everything: explosions, elaborate plans, and George Peppard chomping cigars. In the pilot, they introduced Amy Amanda Allen, played by Melinda Kulia, a journalist who helped the team and became their civilian connection. She was smart, resourceful, and brought a grounded perspective to the chaos.
Hannibal, you must be slipping. I could tell it was you a mile away. The nose is awful, but the hair...
For 2 seasons, Amy was part of the crew, bringing brains to complement their firepower. Then, midway through season 2, Amy went on assignment to Jakarta and never came back. No farewell scene with Hannibal, no goodbye to Face or Murdoch, nothing. She just vanished, replaced briefly by another female character named Tawnia Baker, who also disappeared within a season. The A-Team continued as an all-male operation, and apparently that's exactly how George Peppard wanted it. Behind the scenes, trouble had been brewing from the start. Melinda Kulia wanted Amy to evolve beyond the worried observer role. She wanted to participate in the action, fire some guns, get in on the plans. The producers weren't interested. This was 1980s action television, where female characters were for dramas and sitcoms, not shows with weekly explosions. George Peppard reportedly believed the A-Team should be exactly that: a team of men, no girls allowed in the clubhouse. Network executives backed him up, convinced that action shows needed testosterone to survive. As season 2 progressed, Amy's screen time shrank. Fewer lines, less involvement, until eventually she was just gone. The Jakarta explanation was TV code for fired, and everyone in the industry knew it. They attempted to replace her with Tawnia, but lightning didn't strike twice. Eventually, the A-Team just gave up on female regulars entirely and leaned into being the boys' club Peppard wanted. The show ran until 1987, but Amy Amanda Allen remains a symbol of how 80s television treated women in action genres. She deserved better, but better wasn't available in that era. Number 4. Richie Crawford, Family Matters. We're back at the Winslow house, because apparently they made forgetting children a hobby. When Rachel Crawford, played by Thelma Hopkins, moved in with her sister's family early in Family Matters, she brought her son Richie, played by Bryton James. Richie was adorable, precocious, and had comedic timing that actors twice his age would envy. He became a perfect foil for Steve Urkel's antics, and some of the show's most memorable moments came from their interactions. In 1993, Thelma Hopkins left to star in her own sitcom, but Richie stayed behind with the Winslows. He continued appearing regularly through season 8.
Who goes there?
We go there.
And you? Come here.
Still living with the family, still getting into adventures. Then season 9 arrived, and Richie's screen time dropped dramatically. His final appearance came in the Christmas episode Deck the Malls, and after that, he vanished. The Winslows never mentioned him again, despite him supposedly still living in their house. They'd now forgotten 2 children, which feels less like coincidence and more like a pathological condition. Family Matters had undergone a complete transformation by this point. What started as a wholesome family sitcom, spun off from Perfect Strangers, had morphed into the Steve Urkel science fiction hour. By the final seasons, the show featured cloning machines, time travel, and transformation serums that turned Urkel into a smooth-talking alter ego. Normal family storylines couldn't compete with increasingly absurd sci-fi plots. A grounded kid like Richie had no place in a show where the main character regularly invented reality-bending technology in his basement. The budget went to special effects and Urkel-centric episodes, leaving no room for secondary family members. Richie became expendable, just like Judy before him. The show ended in 1998, but Bryton James landed on his feet. He joined The Young and the Restless in 2004 as Devon Hamilton, a role he still plays today, earning multiple Daytime Emmy Awards. In a perfect twist, he reunited with his TV mom, Thelma Hopkins, when she joined the soap for a recurring role in 2021. Turns out, disappearing from the Winslow household was the best career move possible. Number 3. Walt Lloyd, Lost. When Lost premiered in 2004, Walt Lloyd was positioned as one of the show's biggest mysteries. Michael's son, played by Malcolm David Kelly, had special abilities that were heavily teased from the pilot. Birds flew into windows around him. Polar bears appeared in his comic books, then materialized on the island, and the others were obsessed with kidnapping him. "He's special," they kept saying, and for 2 full seasons,
What did I tell you after everything that's happened?
I thought maybe Vincent would be around.
I told you to stay on the beach.
This is so close to the beach, I thought this would be okay.
Don't do that.
Walt was a central piece of the show's mythology. Then Walt and Michael escaped the island at the end of Season 2, and suddenly Walt wasn't special anymore. He appeared briefly in Season 3 flash-forwards, but by Seasons 4 through 6, he was essentially gone. The series finale in 2010 gave him a brief cameo that resolved absolutely nothing. His powers were never explained. Why the others wanted him remained a mystery. What made him special never got answered. One of the show's core mythological threads was just abandoned, left dangling like so many other lost plot points. Here's the problem the writers couldn't solve. Malcolm David Kelly hit puberty like a freight train. Lost's timeline on the island covered roughly 3 months total, but in real life, the actor aged 5 years between Seasons 1 and 3. By Season 3, the 10-year-old from the pilot was a teenager, nearly 6 feet tall. Flashback scenes became impossible. How do you explain a kid aging 5 years in 3 months? You can't, so they didn't even try. They just shipped Walt off the island permanently and hoped viewers wouldn't notice the massive mythology gap. Fans noticed. They absolutely noticed. Walt's abandoned storyline became a symbol of Lost's creative struggles, proof that the writers were making it up as they went along. The polar bear that Walt somehow manifested got more resolution than Walt himself did. Malcolm David Kelly later expressed disappointment about how things ended, saying he wanted to return, but was never invited back. Lost concluded in 2010, but Walt Lloyd remains one of television's most frustrating what-ifs. All that build-up, all that mystery, for absolutely nothing. Number 2, Donna Martin's Parents, Beverly Hills 90210. Beverly Hills 90210 premiered in 1990 and quickly became the defining teen drama of the decade. Among the main cast was Donna Martin, the sweet, somewhat naive daughter of strict conservative parents. Dr. John Martin and Felice Martin, played by Michael Durrell and Catherine Cannon, were regular fixtures in the early seasons. They provided comic relief as uptight country club parents who disapproved of Donna dating David Silver and constantly worried about their daughter's choices. When Donna faced potential expulsion, leading to the famous Donna Martin graduates protest, her parents were right there. Then the gang graduated high school and headed to California University, and suddenly Donna's parents ceased to exist. By Season 6, in 1995, they rarely appeared. By Seasons 7 through 10, they were completely gone. No death, no divorce, no explanation.
My parents are getting a divorce. Will my mother sing?
Donna moved into a beach apartment and lived like an orphan. Her formerly overprotective parents never called, never visited, didn't show up for college graduation or her eventual wedding. These people who spent years obsessing over their daughter's every move just vanished into thin air. The behind-the-scenes explanation was purely practical. As the show aged up from high school to college, parental characters became irrelevant to storylines. The cast was already enormous, and budget constraints meant cutting recurring actors first. Jim and Cindy Walsh, Brandon and Brenda's parents, also disappeared around the same time. Producer Aaron Spelling's strategy was to cycle out older generation characters and keep the show focused on young adult drama. It was cheaper to pretend everyone was parentless than to pay actors for occasional phone call scenes. But it's still weird how completely they vanished. Donna remained the most innocent, rule-following character throughout the series. You'd think she'd at least call her mom once in a while. Nope, full orphan mode activated. By the late 90s, 90210 had become a parent-free zone where 20-somethings navigated life with zero family guidance. The show ran until 2000, but Donna's parents remain a perfect example of how 90s dramas handled aging casts. Just erase the problem and hope nobody notices. Number 1. Morgan Matthews, Boy Meets World. Boy Meets World premiered in 1993, following Cory Matthews through adolescence. In Season 3 in 1995, the show introduced his little sister Morgan, played by Lily Nixay. She was adorable, precocious, everything a little sister character should be. Then Season 4 arrived, and suddenly Morgan looked completely different. Lindsay Ridgway had replaced Lily Nixay with no explanation, no acknowledgement, just a different kid playing the same character. Fans were confused, but things were about to get much weirder. In Season 4's episode Fishing for Verna, Morgan finally reappeared after being absent for several episodes. Her first line back? That was the longest time out ever. The show literally broke the fourth wall to acknowledge she'd been gone, making a joke about her own disappearance. It was meta, self-aware, and absolutely hilarious.
I'm feeling very perky. Why don't we go up to your room, honey? How come? How come? How come? How come? How come?
For a moment, it seemed like Boy Meets World was going to have fun with the weirdness of recasting and character absences. Then they just went ahead and made her disappear anyway. As the show progressed into Cory's college years, Morgan's screen time decreased dramatically. By the final seasons, she barely appeared at all. Cory got married, graduated, became a teacher, and his little sister was nowhere to be seen for most of it. The Matthews family just kind of forgot they had a daughter again. But here's what makes this the #1 spot. Boy Meets World acknowledged the problem, made a brilliant joke about it, then did nothing to fix it. They were self-aware about television's tendency to forget characters existed. But that awareness didn't actually change anything. Behind the scenes, Lily Nixay's parents pulled her from the show because they wanted her to have a normal childhood, which is completely understandable. The show immediately recast with Lindsay Ridgway, rather than write the character out. But as Boy Meets World shifted focus to Cory, Topanga, and Sean's young adult storylines, a little sister character just didn't fit anymore. Eric's increasingly absurd comedy had taken over the family dynamics, and there simply wasn't room for Morgan in the narrative. The show learned from Family Matters' Judy Winslow mistake. Instead of completely erasing her, they just gradually reduced her presence until she was barely there. The timeout joke remains legendary in television history. It's the most honest acknowledgement of TV's memory problems ever put on screen. Morgan literally said what we were all thinking, and the writers got credit for being clever about it. But then she vanished anyway, proving that even self-awareness doesn't solve the fundamental problem. Boy Meets World ran until 2000, but that one line ensured Morgan Matthews would be remembered not for what she did, but for how perfectly she called out her own disappearance. From family sitcoms that forgot their kids to sci-fi mysteries that abandoned their most intriguing characters, the 80s and 90s were absolutely wild for TV disappearances. Networks could erase anyone overnight, and without social media or streaming to hold them accountable, they just did it. Today, this couldn't happen. Twitter would explode. Reddit would dissect every detail. Streaming services create permanent records that make continuity errors impossible to hide. But back then, it was a different world. If networks didn't mention it, they assumed we wouldn't notice. So, which disappearance shocked you the most? Did we miss your favorite forgotten character? Drop your childhood TV trauma in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so this video doesn't disappear like these characters did. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.